Imagine waking up one morning and finding out that every dollar in your wallet has quietly changed its very nature overnight. No announcement, no referendum, no choice. This isn't science fiction. This isn't a conspiracy theory. This happened on August 15, 1971. That day, in a single televised address, the President of the United States rewrote the rules of the global economy, rules you are still living under today. You might not know his name. You might not remember the speech. But you're definitely feeling the effects. Every time you buy groceries, pay rent, or watch your savings evaporate. So, what happened that night? Why did it happen? And why does the world's financial system, and your future, still depend on a decision made more than 50 years ago? Let's go back. Phase 1. The promise of the dollar. The strength of a nation's currency depends on the strength of its economy. In the mid-20th century, America's economy was untouchable, the largest, most productive, and most influential in the world. In 1944, as World War II neared its bloody conclusion, 44 Allied nations gathered in a small town called Bretton Woods, New Hampshire. Their mission? Design a brand new financial system to prevent another global economic disaster like the Great Depression. Under this new system, one currency would rule them all: the US dollar. Why? Because at the time, the dollar was as good as gold. Literally. The deal was simple. Every participating country would fix its currency to the US dollar. The US dollar would be pegged to gold at $35 an ounce. If a country didn't trust the dollar, they could trade their dollars for physical gold held in US vaults. This meant global trade had a rock-solid anchor. Money wasn't just paper. It was backed by something real, tangible, and universally valuable. For decades, the system worked. The dollar reigned supreme. America entered a golden age. But cracks were forming. Phase 2, lots of guns, butter, and the Great Withdrawal. By the late 1960s, the US was spending more money than it had gold to back it up. The Vietnam War was draining billions. The Great Society welfare programs were expanding at home. The space race was in full swing, costing unimaginable sums. It was the classic guns and butter problem, trying to fund both an expensive war and lavish domestic programs, without raising taxes enough to pay for them. The math didn't add up. Foreign governments started to notice. And they didn't like what they saw. The French were first. They began exchanging their US dollars for gold. Not promises, not IOUs, but the real, precious metal itself. Soon others followed. American gold reserves started disappearing fast. Phase 3, Nixon pulls the trigger. On the night of August 15, 1971, President Richard Nixon addressed the nation. He looked calm, resolute, and he dropped a bombshell. I have directed the Secretary of the Treasury to suspend temporarily the convertibility of the dollar into gold or other reserve assets. Temporarily. That was the word. But temporary has lasted more than half a century. Overnight, the link between the US dollar and gold was gone. The global financial system, carefully built at Bretton Woods, was dead. Phase 4, enter fiat currency. When Nixon broke the gold link, something fundamental changed. Money stopped being money. From that day on, every major currency in the world became fiat currency. Money backed by nothing but government decree. The word fiat comes from Latin, let it be done. In this case, let this paper be money, because we say so. No gold. No silver. No tangible backing. Just trust and force. People believe in it, the system works. If they don't, the whole thing collapses. Phase 5, discipline, became strained. Here's why gold mattered. When a country spent too much, gold would leave its vaults, forcing the government to cut back. It was a natural financial break. Without gold, there was no break. Governments could print, borrow, and spend without limit. And they did. Since 1971, the US has never run a budget surplus. Not once. Deficits became permanent. Debt exploded. Phase 6, the world's biggest Ponzi scheme? Think about it. The US borrows money by issuing government bonds. The Federal Reserve creates money out of thin air to buy those bonds. The government spends that money on salaries, programs, wars. When it's time to repay the bonds, they borrow more to cover the old debt plus interest. And the cycle repeats. If that sounds like a Ponzi scheme, well, you're not alone. Many economists call it exactly that. Phase 7. The global dollar loop. Since the 70s, the US has run huge trade deficits, buying far more from other countries than it sells. Here's the twist. Japan, China, and oil-rich nations sell goods to the US in exchange for dollars. If they convert those dollars into their own currencies, their currency rises, making their exports less competitive. So instead, they invest those dollars back into US government bonds. That means foreign nations are lending the US money, which was originally borrowed into existence in the first place. It's a loop. And like every loop, it can only keep spinning if no one breaks it. Phase 8. Inflation. The invisible tax. When governments print more money, the value of every existing dollar drops. This is inflation. In the 1960s, a gallon of gas cost 31 cents. Today, $5 or more. In the 1970s, one income could support a family of 8. Today, 2 incomes barely cover a family of 4, and that's with credit card debt. Inflation isn't just rising prices. It's the silent theft of your purchasing power. Central banks tell you that 2 to 3% inflation is healthy. But ask yourself, if your wages go up 2% and prices go up 2%, did you get richer? Or did you stand still while thinking you moved forward? Phase 9. The numbers game. Governments know high inflation looks bad. So, they change the way they measure it. Official stats remove volatile items like food and energy. Translation: the stuff you actually buy. If inflation were measured today the same way it was in the 1970s, it could easily be 9 to 10% or higher. Lower reported inflation means smaller cost of living adjustments for things like pensions and Social Security. It's not just creative accounting, it's financial survival for governments drowning in debt. Phase 10. The global race to the bottom. In today's currency system, countries compete by devaluing their money. Why? Because a cheaper currency means cheaper exports. Cheaper exports mean more sales abroad. The result? Entire industries migrate to countries with weaker currencies and lower wages. Factories close. Jobs vanish. Once thriving cities become hollow shells. This sound familiar, right? Phase 11. From gold to debt slavery. Here's the bitter truth. When money was backed by gold, you worked for money that held its value. Now you work for currency that loses value every year. To keep up, you work more hours, take on more debt, and watch your savings evaporate. We moved from saving, to both spouses working, to spending savings, to borrowing, and now? Many are maxed out. There's nothing left to squeeze. Phase 12. What's next? The fiat currency system can keep running, until it can't. As long as people believe the paper has value, it works. When that belief dies, through runaway inflation, debt crises, or loss of trust, it ends. History shows no fiat currency has ever survived forever. Every single one has collapsed. The question isn't if, it's when. So the next time you hear about inflation, the national debt, or a temporary government measure, remember August 15, 1971. That was the day money died, and a new game began. A game you were born into. A game you cannot opt out of. A game with only one rule: keep playing, or lose everything. And the people who truly understand this game, they don't just play it, they own it. But what can I do about it? You might ask. Here's the no-nonsense reality check playbook. Own assets that beat inflation. Cash rots. It's a melting ice cube sitting in your savings account. The bank gives you 0.5% interest while inflation quietly steals 8%. If you're smart, you swap that melting cube for something that holds, or grows, its value. Stocks in companies with pricing power. Real estate in high-demand areas. Gold and silver as long-term hedges. Productive businesses that generate income. Assets don't just keep up with inflation, they can outrun it. Build a second or third income stream. One paycheck is a financial death sentence in the long run. If that paycheck disappears, you're done. You need income that doesn't depend on a single boss or a single industry. Start a small side business. Turn a skill into a freelance service. Use the internet, e-commerce, content creation, online teaching. The rich don't hope their job will last. They stack income streams until losing one doesn't matter. Kill bad debt before it kills you. There's good debt and bad debt. Good debt buys assets that produce income. Bad debt buys you things that go down in value the second you swipe your card. Credit card debt is legalized slavery at 20% interest. You can't invest your way to freedom if you're bleeding from 1,000 tiny payments every month. Stop saving in cash, start storing in value. Your grandparents could put $10,000 in a savings account and retire on it. You can't. If you're saving for the long-term use. High-yield savings only for short-term needs. Index funds or ETFs for the next 10+ years. Precious metals or crypto for store of value insurance. Cash is for liquidity. Wealth is for growth. Learn the tax game. Inflation takes from your wallet. Taxes take from your paycheck. The wealthy don't just pay taxes, they play taxes. Educate yourself on legal deductions, retirement account tax advantages, 401k Roth IRA, business expense write-offs if you run a side hustle. The tax code is thousands of pages long. You can either ignore it or use it as a manual. Hedge against currency collapse. History says no fiat currency lasts forever. The dollar is no exception. That doesn't mean panic, it means insurance. Hold a percentage of your net worth in assets outside the dollar. Consider a small allocation in Bitcoin or other decentralized assets. Diversify internationally if possible. You don't have to move to Switzerland, but your money can. Upgrade your skills faster than prices rise. The best inflation hedge isn't gold or real estate, it's you. Learn high-value skills that command higher pay. Tech, data and AI. Marketing and sales. Negotiation and leadership. If your earning power grows faster than prices rise, inflation becomes irrelevant. And don't rent, whenever it makes sense. Rent rises every year. A fixed-rate mortgage does not. If you're going to live somewhere for 5+ years, buying can lock in your housing cost while your neighbors watch theirs skyrocket. Bonus. Your home becomes an appreciating asset, not a liability. Keep emergency liquidity. Assets are great, but you can't pay rent with a gold bar during a layoff. Keep 3 to 6 months of expenses in liquid, safe accounts. This buffer means you never have to sell your investments at the worst possible time. Think like the bank. Banks make money on interest, fees, and owning assets. You can too. Lend money privately at interest with contracts. Buy rental property for steady cash flow. Reinvest profits instead of spending them. Don't just be a customer in the system. Own the system's tools. In a world where the dollar is designed to lose value, you can't afford to play defense forever. The people who survive and thrive don't just react to the game, they master it. Money is a tool. Inflation is a tax. Debt is a chain. Break the chain, own the tool, and stop being a player in someone else's Ponzi scheme. Because if you don't control your money will control you. Hope you learned something valuable in this video and tell us in the comment what steps you have taken to combat ever-increasing inflations today. See you in the next one.